Well, with the deadline for the EU and the UK to agree a post-Brexit trade deal just weeks away, the US Special Envoy to Northern Ireland, Mick Mulvaney, has travelled here to offer his assistance. Travellers from the US are currently required to restrict their movements for 14 days upon arrival, but the government has waived this for Mr Mulvaney on diplomatic grounds. We spoke with him in Dublin a little earlier at a physical distance and outdoors. He began by describing how the United States was keeping a close eye on negotiations to ensure that there was no risk of a return to a hard border on this island.
I think it's fair to say that we are aware and cautious in watching the situation. Concern would imply that we're worried, and I don't think we're at that point yet. But we certainly understand the interplay between the EU-UK trade deal and the Internal Markets Bill and the Good Friday Agreement, which is mostly why I'm here. I have not been able to be here previously because of COVID.
Do you think it's at risk, though?
I think it could be. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it necessarily follows that just because the UK introduced the Internal Markets Bill that automatically means the Good Friday Agreement is at risk. But I think anyone who looks at the situation understands there could be a series of events that could ultimately put the Good Friday Agreement at risk. Again, something that we're very interested in seeing not happen in the United States. We are here to protect, defend that Good Friday Agreement that was so hard fought and won.
Now, you've said you do think that the UK and EU will be able to strike up a deal by the deadline. Why do you think that?
Because I've been in Washington long enough to know how politics works, especially at the highest levels. And it is oftentimes ugly and brutish. But I think we're all sort of cautiously optimistic that, yes, the British government and the EU will be able to hammer out something by the appropriate deadline that covers the necessary agreements.
Now, the Internal Markets Bill, the British government has admitted, does break international law. Do you still trust the UK?
I do, very much so. And actually, I think the better choice of words is that it would break international law, not that it does. Keep in mind, I read the thing, and I think it's accurately described as something that only kicks in if there isn't a larger agreement.
Nevertheless, even if it is a fail-safe, we're rapidly approaching the deadline and approaching the end of the transition period, so it may become more than that.
Sure, well, it becomes more relevant, or more potentially relevant, with every passing day. Again, everything that you've said just contributes to the fact of why I've been able to come over this week. So I think everybody understands the import of these discussions. Everybody understands the importance of the Good Friday Agreement. Everybody understands the role that the Americans can play if necessary. So I've been very glad to have been invited to come over this week and to be able to do what I can to help move things along if at all possible.
A bipartisan group of Congresspeople has written to Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying that Congress basically won't okay a UK-US trade deal if there's any threat to the Good Friday Agreement, to peace on this island. Was that the correct move from those Congresspeople?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it's accurate. And the way that I read the letter, and I know Richie Neal, I know Brendan Boyle, I don't talk as much to Nancy Pelosi as I used to when I was in the White House, but I know all those folks. I served with them in the United States House. And I think their attitude is, look, the British need to know that if a border goes up, all deals are off. And at the end of the day, we will not tolerate, or at least we'll do whatever we can to prevent a return of the border between the Republic and the North.
And on that, do you think the US and the UK will be able to strike a trade deal?
I do. One of the strange benefits from our government's perspective of Brexit was that we can now enter into discussions on a free trade agreement with the United Kingdom. It will not move quickly, but it could move smoothly through the process. And again, I do think we will have a deal with the British government at some point in the near future.
Now, President Trump also has questioned basically the legitimacy of the election, and he hasn't said that he would definitely accept the result if he were to lose. When you were his chief of staff, would you have advised him to take that position?
The question becomes over the legitimacy of the election, and are you going to know who won, and when will you know who won? The election was always going to be close. Our nation just happens to be very closely divided, and our elections tend to follow the nation, not the other way around. So the election was always going to be close. Then you add to it COVID, which adds to it this additional element of new ways for us to count votes. So I think what the president is drawing attention to, and correctly so, is that we might not know who's going to win this election for several days or even weeks after the election. There will be lawsuits, there will be disagreements. agreements. If you mail your ballot in before the election, but it doesn't arrive till after the election, does that vote count or not?
Well, he was asked whether he would accept the result, and he said we'll have to see when we get there.
The question for us is going to be, when will we know with confidence that we can say it's this candidate or it's this candidate, so that we can all move forward? But when we get to that point, we are all moving forward together.
Now, the first presidential debate is on tomorrow night. President Trump, at a press conference in the White House yesterday, again suggested that perhaps former Vice President Joe Biden is taking performance-enhancing drugs, and he said both of them should take a drug test ahead of the debate tomorrow. Are you in favour of that?
I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think the president is simply, listen, I know the president, I know the president's sense of humor. I know not all folks appreciate or understand his sense of humor, but I think his point was that, just as his health was an issue at certain points during his presidency. You've seen newspapers in our country almost ad nauseum, did he have minor strokes? Why did he go to the hospital this and such weekend? The health of a president is always a relevant issue. And for that reason, the health of a candidate for that office is always a relevant issue.
So should they take drug tests tomorrow?
I would be wonderful to see one of them do it and challenge the other one to do it. That's part of our little political fun that we'd like to have with our races.
And how do you think the debate will go?
Mr. Biden has more to lose from debating than he does to win. That if he does have a gaffe of some significant import during the debate, that by itself could ruin his presidential hopes, and that for that reason there'll be tremendous pressure on him to just do one debate. So I'm going to be watching Tuesday night, even though it's going to be a miserable time of the morning here, just because I think it may be the only one.